Welcome to The Overcomers, where stories of resilience, faith, and purpose shine bright. Join us for a powerful new episode as we sit down with Natan Alexander, a devoted father of four, author, entrepreneur, teacher, counselor from Israel, who has overcome incredible challenges, from his parents' divorce to having ancestors who faced the Holocaust, to now helping inspire and equip others with practical tools for success in their lives and relationships. On this channel, we celebrate the strength and purpose within us all. Get ready to be inspired. I'm honored to be here today with my friend Natan Alexander. Natan, thank you so much for joining us on the Overcomers YouTube today.
Thank you for having me.
So, a few things about my friend Natan in case you haven't had the pleasure of getting to know him like I have. He's the devoted father of four. He's an author, entrepreneur, and teacher and counselor joining us from Israel. He's overcome a lot in life, and he's now on a mission to help inspire people while bringing practical skills that bring great success to your life and your relationships. He's the founder of Sparks of Eden, an educational hub offering live events and illuminating sparks in marriage, as well as leader of the Pack, a life coaching group for men spanning 8 countries, and the co-founder of Be Better Together, which offers support to couples looking for rabbinical advice. He's also the Israel director for King's Ransom Foundation, which supports the orphan, the widow, and the poor. And most recently, the author of The Genesis of Relationships. But what I'm blown away most by with you, Natan, actually, is your passion and your inner relentless drive to help others. Just mentioning all these things that you're a part of is such a huge testimony to how much your heart not only truly desires for making a difference, but the sheer lengths you go to truly do that. You are leading powerfully, my friend. Not to mention at times, even being on the front lines to fight for others' families there in Israel. So without further ado, let's let you tell the story of how you went from all these things you've overcome to all the amazing things you're up to right now to help other people.
Well, thank you, Jen. And thank you to you, because it's one thing to speak and give your story and give over to other people and empower other people, but it takes a humility to find other people and lift them up like you're doing and give them the platform and the stage to tell their story. So thank you for your humility and your passion to help people through their difficulties. And I'm sure that comes from you overcoming and wanting to see more people overcome. But that's a very, very beautiful thing. There's so many people in the world that just want to raise themselves up. And it's so, my mother told me years and years ago, there are two types of people. One person wants to raise themselves up, so they push other people down so that they're higher than the others. And there are other people who work on themselves to do better and do better than they did last time and hit their head against the wall and do more and more and more. And then they get where they're meant to get to. So thank you for being you, who not only doesn't push other people down, but lifts them up and brings us on your amazing, amazing YouTube channel and everything else that you do. I don't know where to start. So I guess if you go to, everyone has their story, right? When I was studying psychotherapy, one of the things that really touched me was understanding that everybody has a narrative, right? Everybody has their own story, but not only does everyone have their own story, everyone has their own interpretation of their own story, right? And so I can only tell you from my side where I came from, and other people might turn around, watch this, and go, oh, that's not. I don't know why Jen even had him on the show, right? And other people might go, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I can tell you that I never thought I was special. I have never ever thought that I'm special. In fact, I come from a family of Holocaust survivors, and one of the things passed on through Holocaust survivors is just take a deep breath and get on with life. It's not that bad. It's also not that good, right? It's like about 10 years ago, someone said to me, "Why don't you celebrate all of your wins?" I'm like, "What wins are you talking about? I don't know how to do that." It's just like a put your head down, get on with life, and survive. That's how we've been taught. But yeah, I guess when you sit there and you list the things that I've done and that I'm doing, yeah, okay, I'll give myself a pat on the back, and I guess I've overcome a few things. Um, I guess we'll start with childhood. I come from a divorced family. My mother and father got divorced when I was 4 and my sister was 8.
Mm.
And all of the baggage that comes with that. Now, my mother and my father, neither of them are bad people. Nobody cheated on anybody. Nobody, stole from anybody. They just weren't meant to be married. Put it that way, right? They just weren't meant to be married. And I know that, in certain religious circles, it's frowned upon when you people look at divorce, and no one should ever get divorced or anything like that.
You
Yeah,
would,
sometimes it's frowned upon when people get divorced. But as a marriage counselor, and I'm not here to challenge anyone's belief systems, but as a marriage counselor, I thank God that my parents got divorced.
Mm.
I don't know how I would have turned out if they would have stayed together, and that negative interaction and lack of communication and disrespect that was happening between them. If I grew up with that as role models, they're my clients, right? My clients saw their parents disrespect each other and therefore continue to disrespect each other. So and much worse, right? And so I really see the workings of it's a blessing. My parents got married. They had my sister and I. They created whatever foundations in our family that were needed, but then they got divorced. And a lot of my inspiration for what I do for families comes from that, right? Comes from that reality of I don't want other people to have children having to go through divorce. I believe that a lot of problems can be solved. They don't have to end in argument. They don't have to end in divorce. In fact, one of the things that I teach is 8 rules to disagreement, because as married couples, we're going to disagree. We're two different people. We're two individuals that choose to become one. And so we have to learn how to disagree. And one of the main rules is never, ever insult or put your spouse down,
Mm.
right? And so much hurt and pain goes into this snowball effect of lack of trust and scarring and lack of grace, that then people end up getting divorced, and they probably didn't even need to, right? In my parents' case, maybe they could. Maybe if they had a marriage counselor like me, they wouldn't have got divorced. I don't know, but I do see the strength and the positivity in the fact that they decided they weren't meant to be with each other. They didn't want this marriage to be a role model for their kids, and so they went their separate ways. And so we got to grow up in a family that had its difficulties because of divorce, but at the same time, its strengths, because we didn't grow up with parents together that continuously disrespected each other or put each other down, and they became our role models. So I guess one of the biggest overcomings that I have in my life is that I come from a divorced family, yet we're teaching, families and couples how to overcome that type of stuff and not go there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that, you went through this experience obviously and had your own takeaways of, looking ahead at marriage for myself, here's what I want to, produce in my marriage. And, you talk about that one thing of never ever insulting your
Yeah,
spouse. But I think it's
yeah.
so beautiful and so powerful that you didn't just stop there. You didn't just say, okay, this is a great lesson for me and my future and my legacy and the one I love, but you want to share that with the world. You want to share those lessons, which again just goes back to your incredible heart of like, hey, no, I know this is going to help a lot of people and a lot of families. And so I think that's so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do have a deep belief that it's actually there's a Jewish um, tradition that says if you know one letter, it's your responsibility to teach that one letter. That one letter isn't yours, right? If you learn a lesson in life, that's not your lesson to keep from the rest of the world. Simple, right? Imagine someone goes into debt and loses a business and their house falls apart because of it. Are they going to keep the lessons that they've learned if they're blessed to learn the lessons from those mistakes? Are they going to keep those lessons from their children so that their children can make the same mistakes and fall in the same pits and and have the same scars? No, it's a blessing to go through those difficulties to
Mm.
then be able to learn the lessons, to be able to also teach those lessons. And that's, I mean, I'm just going to jump straight into the first chapter of the book is all about self-awareness because the world teaches, in sales and in counseling, it's all about understanding the other. But I was created for me before I was created for someone else. And so self-awareness and understanding yourself and the lessons that you've learned in life is the first step. Then you get to go and teach that to other people and empower other people, right?
Mm.
But if you, Jen, hadn't paused and processed, and I'm sure it's an ongoing process, right, of lessons learned through difficulties and through pain and through mistakes, if we don't pause and recognize those things, we're going to just keep scratching on the same scar and create an even worse one, not only for ourselves, but the people around us, our children, our family, and our friends.
Yeah. I love that example, the analogy of the scar. It's so true. You mentioned that there was this principle that you learned early on about the letter, and when you learn a letter, then sharing it with others. Was there a specific moment where that like truly impacted you for the first time when you learned that principle?
Not that I can remember. Not that I can remember. I think it's probably something that resonated with me because I've always been surrounded by incredible, actually not always surrounded by incredible teachers, but from my teenage 15, 16-year-old, I've been, very much surrounded by and invested in finding incredible teachers.
Mm.
And those incredible teachers were always willing to open their homes and willing to open their hearts and willing to be real with me about their life lessons. I grew up, another thing that I did overcome is I was horrific at school, right? And not only did I do really badly at school, my teachers didn't keep it to themselves
Mm.
about their lack of faith in me. Uh, my science teacher told me that I was an embarrassment to her because of my grades. My principal, in fact, my mother is here in Israel now, and she wants to take one of the books back to go and knock on my old principal's door. She knows where she lives because that principal told my mother that I would never ever succeed
Mm.
in life. Like that was the education that I grew up with. It wasn't just like, okay, Natan really struggles. Let's give him what he needs in order to do better. They really put me down, and I grew up with my mother always opening my school reports and saying, Nath, I'm not going to look at the grades because they don't matter. What really matters to me is what the teacher thinks of you, what they're saying about your personality.
Mm.
And so I got to then focus on, hey, this thing called personality is a strength that I have. I don't have to worry too much about the grades because one day maybe this personality might get me somewhere, right? And so for the first years of school and some of high school, there was a lot of like, we don't believe in Nathan and he doesn't know what he's doing and he'll never do well. But then I met a few really incredible teachers that took me under their wings, including teaching me how to be a teacher. And one of those key concepts was, you know, a letter, teach it. You know, even if you know half the letter and you think the rest of the world know the whole alphabet, go teach that half a letter because you're good at teaching, you know, and empower people through that small amount that you know.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
That's amazing. I was about to ask you where all this drive comes from and to hear the story of like where you started and all of the voices you had all around you that were truly not speaking belief into you. It's amazing that in the midst of all of those voices and so many negative voices that you learn to attach to the positive ones. And you had an amazing mom and some amazing teachers who did seed in, those words of truth in the midst of that sea. How did you navigate, grasping truth in the midst of all of those voices of disbelief?
It's a really, really good question because I had a lot of self-doubt. I remember I think that as a child I went through some level of depression.
Mm.
Like I remember every single Sunday wanting to cry. And I had no understanding why. And my mum was a tough cookie. And so, you know, the way she dealt with it was, come on, take a deep breath and get on with it. You'll be okay. Which I don't blame her for. You know, she grew up, once again, her parents were Holocaust survivors. Her father died when she was 4. Her mother was very depressed, obviously, and she had to bring up 2 young boys and my mother. So the role models were very much missing, right, in how to be a caring, loving mother. My father's father died when he was 15.
Mm.
So both my parents really struggled to have role models in how to as we say in Australia, to bring us up, you know, to grow my sister and I up. Um, but yeah, I don't really know where um I got that energy to push through until I got married. The pushing through, I think there were a few very fundamental men in my life, apart from my father, one being my uncle and the other being the rabbi that taught me when I was 13. And they really invested in me, and I looked up to them so deeply. They both passed away within 2 years of themselves, which was another thing for me to get over. But then when I got married, I always knew, everyone always said, Nathan, you'll be ready to get married already at 4 years old when your parents got divorced. You're ready to get married. Like, I do remember taking on that responsibility in my own little 4 or 5 year old head. I'm going to look after my mother and my sister. And I was always very mature. I'd interact with the parents and with the adults. You know, people would come over for a Friday night dinner. The kids would go and play in my room, and I'd sit at the table talking to the adults. And I guess that lifted me up, right? That I was able to interact with adults, and I'd hear the adults saying, "Oh, wow, he's so mature and he can interact." I guess that kind of helped me along. And then when we got married, my wife really, really helped me recognize strengths that I have. Even now, I'm after or during the war, some of, for example, Leader of the Pack that you spoke about, the men's life coaching, that's kind of really dwindled because I haven't been able to turn up for the men. So now I was just released from the military after almost 600 days service straight, and in my new job, I'm managing people. And I said to my wife today, I said, did you ever think that I'd be writing protocols for the functioning of an entire corporation? She's like, yep. And I told you you would. It's true. She did. She did. She empowered me. in some of my most difficult times in my life, and she still does today.
You have an amazing wife and
I
a
do.
who so believes in you. That's so obvious.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
That's
very, very, very blessed.
mm. Well, I know anyone who's listening to our interview today is asking themselves, how can I take advantage of now where you are and the resources you have to help couples and help marriages and get to this place of where you have a spouse like you do who is
Mm.
being also that voice of belief in you and
Mm.
everything you're designed to do and truly is a partner in this season of life where look at all the amazing things you're a part of, how you're showing up and leading with so much skill, so much excellence and authority and education. And I love your own mother who wants to take your book to your former principal. Like, look at my son. I can almost see her face of just joy exuding from her spirit of how proud of you she is because she
Thank
too
you.
knew deep down the truth of who her son was and who you
Yeah,
are. And
yeah.
so what would you say to those couples today or someone who even desires to be married and find a spouse like that? What kind of
Mm.
advice would you have for, that couple or that single person who is looking for that in marriage?
So if that person is still single, they're starting with a head start, whatever age you are. And I interact, there's quite a few singles who are doing courses with me on how to prepare themselves for marriage and really wanting to prepare properly for it. And so it doesn't matter what age you are, you're at a head start, okay? I think one of the biggest keys is going back to, and if someone believes in God and the Bible, they can take this. And if they don't, they can also take this. Okay. If you take it that God is the one that wrote and created the Bible, the Torah, then that's great. And if not, then it's a story. And that's also okay, as long as you take it as your narrative to learn. Okay. In the story of Bereshit, of Genesis, God creates Adam and Eve as separate individuals, right? And they grow together as separate individuals. In fact, God says that man will leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and become one flesh. That is a choice. That oneness is a choice, but at the same time, it's a choice of two separate individuals. Even when we are one made up of two separate individuals. And so the key is understanding yourself and taking responsibility, both for positive and for negative, of your role in absolutely everything. We live in a society and a generation that loves pointing fingers, right? It's the government, it's the economy, it's my past, it's my future, it's my environment, it's where I live, it's my economic status, it's everything else but me, right? If only she would have spoken to me like this, if only he would have treated me like that, things would be different. But the key is that we are all created as individuals that get to decide who we are, and what our narrative is. And so the key to a positive marriage of growth and love and healing and grace and light and passion is taking responsibility for your role in everything that happens. I'm going to tell you a story that demonstrates it beautifully, okay? There's a story of, let's call him Bob, okay? Bob lives his life and finally his life comes to an end and maybe he's done a few wrong things. So God Almighty sends him down to that place that none of us really want to go. And if we go, not for very long. And he looks at this place called hell and he sees the most horrific picture, the most horrific image in his mind. He sees a massive hall with people sitting around with food, banquet food everywhere. But everybody is crying of hunger. Everybody's crying of hunger. Can't work it out. There's food everywhere, but why is everybody hungry? And he realizes that each person has a curse on them that they can't bend their arm, so they can't feed themselves. God then says, okay, Bob, you've had enough of this whole hell thing. We're going to send you up to the big pearly gates and you get to go to heaven. And he arrives in heaven and he sees exactly the same image, but no one is hungry. Everyone is singing, everyone is joyous, everyone is full of food. And he realizes that the same people also can't bend their elbows, but they realize that they can feed each other. Therefore, they're all full and they're all happy. Now, most people jump to that story and go, oh, so if I realize that if I serve my spouse, everyone will be happy, right? No. The key is in the recognition of what I can and cannot do. If I realize and recognize that I'm limited, that I can't bend my arm, that's the first step to happiness, because I know that that's a limitation and I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. Now, that doesn't mean people shouldn't grow and shouldn't heal and learn new skills and all that type of stuff, right? But it's the self-awareness that we all have made mistakes, that we all have weaknesses, and none of us are perfect. And that's okay. But then I can also realize that I have strengths. I have an arm that can reach someone else. I have an arm that can pick up that food. No matter how badly I think of myself, no matter how many mistakes I've made, whether it's before I get married, while I'm married, after I'm married, I am created in the image of the Creator of all. And therefore, I have strengths. I have purpose in this world. I was woken up for a reason today. I don't believe that that's happenstance. I believe that I was woken up in the world today, both because I have weaknesses that I get to work on and because I have strengths that I get to use for the world. And so the key, and for this, I'm giving it away for free. The key is take responsibility for who you are. Take responsibility for your weaknesses and your strengths. Now, unfortunately, there are many life coaches that teach certain texts. Well, if you just say this to your spouse, it will bring down their walls and everything will be fine. Not necessarily. They might turn around and say, don't use that on me again, right? Or maybe they need to hear different words. But the reality is that if you make a mistake in your relationship and you first and foremost look in the mirror and tell your spouse, I have done a true soul search and I want to apologize for the fact that I didn't take you into consideration, or that I spoke to you in a certain way, or that I was grumpy last night, or I didn't scratch your back like your back scratch, whatever it is, right? First and foremost, truly, not as a script, but truly take responsibility for your mistakes. That spouse will see your humility. And if you're a good leader doing that, will most likely take your lead and go, you know what? I'm also sorry. I'm also sorry that I spoke to you with disrespect. Or I'm also sorry that I spoke out of line or that I judged you or whatever it is. And my wife and I have been married almost 23 years. When we have a misunderstanding or a disagreement or even an argument, it normally lasts maximum an hour.
That's amazing.
That's it. And I've got cameras all over you can come and see, okay? You can come and see. It's taken a lot of hard work. It's taken major humility and beauty from my wife in so many ways, and leadership from me as a man in the house. that we stop, we recognize what's going on, and we take responsibility for our part in it. Now, what normally happens in this key is once you've taken responsibility, you then get to express how you've been hurt by the other person. Why? Because you've humbled yourself. You've bowed your head in front of them. Okay, so how can we do it better? Well, you know what? If you would use different words with me, I probably would have been able to express myself in a different way. If you would have, could be a whole lot of different things, right? But when someone leads and is truly humble, takes responsibility for their own fault, then the other side is willing to hear where they've done wrong. But if it's just blame and it's just finding my narrative is that you this and you that and you this and you that, it's a never-ending argument. And that's where I make money. And I don't want to make money through that. I would rather spend all of my time raising money for the poor and the widow than counseling people through the same argument over and over again.
So good. So good. I love what you talk about in the true aspect of the power of communication, really, and it comes from authenticity and humility. And instead of pointing the finger, looking at yourself first, looking in the mirror like you talked about.
Yeah.
One last question for you before we end our time together. If someone is listening today and maybe they can relate specifically to being in that space right now where they don't have a lot of people who believe in them. They don't see the truth of who they truly are, and they're struggling with the voices going on around them of like, hey, no, wait, can we go back to what Natan was talking about when he felt like no one believed in him and he's hearing it verbally from those around him? What would you say to that person right now?
I would say that person, like I said before, you were woken up this morning for a purpose and a reason. God believes in you. And as I say in Genesis of Relationships, who am I not to believe in myself if God Almighty believes in me, right? What arrogance I would have to turn around and say to God, you know what? You're wrong. I'm worthless. No, I don't get to, right? That's number one. Number two, and I know people are in difficult places. The world is a crazy place. It's a difficult place. There are people and there are societies pushing us down over and over and over again. I have to tell you, I'm a Jewish Orthodox rabbi. I come from a people who have been persecuted for over 2,000 years. Okay? The moment you feel sorry for yourself is the moment that you've failed. The moment you don't recognize that difficult, well, let's actually put it to the positive. The moment that you realize that you're going through that struggle for a reason, for a purpose, then you get to be inspired and say, oh, wow. So how can I better myself through this? How can I better my family through this difficulty? Whether you have a family now or in the future, how can I better my community through this? How can I better the world through this? Ladies and gentlemen, I've never read a book this big, and it's small, okay? It's literally 129 pages. Okay, I haven't read a book that's as big as my book and it's only 129 pages. Okay, if you see limitations in yourself and you buy into those limitations, well, then you're just going to continue to be limited. But if you can say to yourself, how can I use this struggle? How can I use this pain? How can I use this limitation in order to do better, to be better, to teach better, to empower myself and then others? You're unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable, because every time someone pushes you down, you get to use that as another step up, right? It's like, let's go, another push me down. Let's see what happens, right? It might hurt. Okay, it's going to hurt. I'm going to bleed a little bit, whether it's physically, spiritually, or emotionally, but then I'm going to take a breath and go, oh, wow, okay, they came at me that way this time. Let's not be there that time. Let's go here. I invested the money that way last time and I lost it. Well, I'm not going to do that again. And I'm going to make sure that my children know never to make the mistake that I made. I spoke to my wife or my husband in that way. In the, when I came home from work and they were hurt by it, well, I'm not going to continue. Well, I have every right. I'm a man and I had a hard day, so I get to treat her badly. No, stop, pause. Rejection is hard. Why am I being rejected? Oh, wow. I can learn from that. Next time I walk into the house, take a breath, splash water on my face, or even walk around the block until you're in a better mood, and then walk into the house. Everything that we get pushed down, use as a step up to empower yourself, your children, your grandchildren, and all the people around you.
So
That's what I
good.
do.
So good. How can I not buy into the limitations, but instead use it as a step up? Come on, that is so good,
Yep,
friend. So
yep.
well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy
Thank you,
schedule
Jen.
with all the things that you're involved in and
Thank you,
to help
Jen.
others. I just so appreciate you taking the time out to speak into those who are going to be listening to this interview and truly desire to change their marriage, to have a healthy marriage, and to truly get in that space and place where life is unstoppable. They're unstoppable in their future and what God has designed for them to do because they truly
Amen.
are using those moments in life as a step up. So thank you for being the incredible inspiration that you are. Thank you
Thank
for
you, Jen.
leading the way. And thank you for sharing with us your story. I know it takes a lot of courage to show up on these interviews and to share the guts of the pain you've been through, but to do it for a purpose. And you've done that today. So,
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me. And I bless you to continue to be amazingly successful in everything that you're doing because you are a truthful person.
mm,
You're willing to share your truth, and that inspires people. The world is so full of masks. The world is so full of fake. The world is so full of keys of if I just say X, Y, Z, even if I don't mean it. I'll go and do this even though I don't really feel it, just so that other people judge me nicely and I come across as a nice guy. It's nonsense, guys. Be truthful, be real in this world. We get it once, right? We get it once. So, Jen, thank you for being truthful and real to the world and inviting people like us in here to be able to tell our own stories as well.
mm. Well, it is a pleasure and an honor, my friend, to have had you here today. Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us on The Overcomers today. We hope Natan's story of overcoming adversity, his relentless drive to help others, and his passion for making a difference has inspired you as much as it has us. Remember, no matter where you've come from or what challenges you face, you have the power to overcome. Subscribe for more uplifting stories and to join us in celebrating the incredible strength and purpose within each of us. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep overcoming.